There is a place called mall. I was not allowed to enter this mall on the basis of like my gender, or it was not even a gender, it was like how I look like. Everybody was standing there and looking at us like as if we have done something very wrong, because we live in a society, anything happens, all the crowd gets together and wants to understand what is happening. And some other people who tried to help me at that point saying like, we'll help you, get in. I said, it's not about getting in. I can get in, I can call police, I can do a lot of things, but I want other people to understand that we are no aliens, we are no terrorists, we are no people that gonna harm you. So please stop doing this to us. So I really think people really need to do their homework. Not only listen to us, because listening to us for 5 seconds and forgetting things will not help you. Try to work out, try to look for a solution, try to go and talk to people who have shut their eyes and close their ears and are ignoring us. Because when I tell people, do you see me, they say they really see me, but when it comes about our rights, they really don't see us. Call us with all derogatory names in spite of fact they know we can sue them with the present judgment. People will call us chakka, people will call us chore, people will call us sex worker, and people will comment on our dress, and people will not only people, the society. The worst point of my life when I felt so bad about myself, being trans person. I really hated at that time when my own brother's marriage, wedding, my parents did not invite me, and they said like, it's okay, I mean, if you're occupied with your thing and keep doing your thing. So it's not only society, our neighbors, our workplace, it's everywhere, it's happening everywhere. People like us have started ignoring it and taking it for granted, but I think we need to stop. And as a human and as equality, as rights, you need to understand you don't have mouth just to say anything you want to other person. So I've been hearing all kind of things, but I don't want those things to happen in future. This is why we are fighting for it.
Welcome to this session of training. Today our topic is stigma, violence against transgenders and their legal provisions. Transgender people face injustice at every turn of childhood, in homes, in school systems that promise to shelter and educate, in harsh and exclusionary workplaces, at the grocery store, the hotel front desk, in the doctor's offices, at emergency rooms. Every human being is guaranteed inalienable human rights in accordance with international legal standards. For many trans people, these rights exist only in form and not in substance. Trans people are denied not only fundamental rights to equality, dignity, health and security of being, but their very personhood. Trans people experience grave marginalization, discrimination and violence. This debilitating environment has many harmful consequences, one of which is a severe HIV epidemic, particularly among trans women. Interventions to address transphobia, violence, stigma and discrimination, and to uphold the human rights of trans people are essential in order to safeguard their health and well-being. The onus to implement and expand such strategies lie as much as with the government actors, including health and law enforcement departments, as well as non-state actors and community groups. Transphobia is prejudice which is directed at people whose gender identity or expression doesn't conform to social norms and expectations. It is a reaction to the real and perceived differences between biological sex attributed to a person at birth and their gender identity or expression. Transphobia is socially created attitude, similar in nature to racism, sexism, xenophobia, or religious intolerance. It contributes to the marginalization of trans people and gender non-conforming people and their resultant vulnerability to HIV. Transphobia can be directed at individuals or groups and manifests in many ways, including violence or other aggressive behavior, stigmatization, hostility, disgust, or other negative attitudes. It is often institutionalized to criminalization, discrimination, social exclusion, hate speech, and hostile media coverage that pathologize and stigmatize trans people. A person's experience of transphobia may be aggravated or mitigated by their nationality, class, race, religion, economic circumstances, or disability. Trans people living with HIV also report HIV related stigma, discrimination, and violence from within their own communities, as well as from their families and intimate partners. Discrimination and harassment of trans people are often targeted at their gender expression or clothes. This may include prohibiting a trans woman from having long hair or making a trans man wear a skirt. Derogatory comments may escalate to forcibly cutting a trans woman's hair, removing a trans man's binder so his chest is exposed, or stripping other clothes to reveal a trans man's or a trans woman's body.
കൊണ്ടേക്കിടും.
ഞങ്ങൾ ഡോക്ടറിന്റെ ക്യാബിന്റെ മുമ്പിലുണ്ട്. അതെ, ഒന്നും അറിയില്ല, ഡോക്ടർ ഒന്നും പറഞ്ഞിട്ടില്ല. ആ അതെ അതെ, ഇവിടെ വെയിറ്റ് ചെയ്യാണ്. ഓ, അത് ശരി, എന്നാ ഞാൻ വിളിക്കാം. ഓക്കെ.
Although many people rely on their families and communities for vital acceptance and support, trans people frequently face discrimination and rejection instead. Now, this includes being excluded from their families, from home, prevented from attending school, or forced to relinquish their children. Sometimes discrimination is perpetuated in the name of cultural or traditional values. While most transgender people behave in ways that do not conform to expected gender roles during childhood, not all gender non-conforming children grow into a transgender identity. However, gender non-conforming children are subject to harassment and violence at home and schools, regardless whether they are themselves transgender as adults. Most families do not accept transgender non-conforming behavior in their children, which may manifest as early as 3 to 5 years of age. For many parents, the news that their child is transgender or gender non-conforming can bring an array of emotions. Along with it, some people feel sad, fearful, disappointed, while others feel shocked, angry, and upset. Very few are willing to support their loved ones without trying to make them change. Parents may threaten, scold, or even assault their trans children for behaving in ways considered girlish or feminine, and their female child for behaving like a boy. They may have several reasons for doing so. This includes fear that a gender non-conforming child will bring disgrace and shame for the family, the apprehension that the child will not marry or discharge their own family responsibilities, The ostracism within families often continues across the lifespan of such children. Transgender persons often leads to violence and a range of corrective measures from their families as well as their expanded networks, including the neighborhood, schools, etc. Transgender and gender non-conforming youth are sometimes expelled from their family, or they run away due to the fact they are unable to bear the taunts and the violence. Trans people are significantly more likely to experience violence at the hands of their intimate partners than other groups, and trans women more so than trans men. Such violence does not include or is limited to physical aggression, but also outing trans people to strangers at work, prohibiting them from interacting with other trans people, as well as forced or unprotected sex, sexual manipulation and blackmail. There are various provisions in Section 3 of the Act to protect from all forms of discrimination. The Act prohibits the discrimination against a transgender person, including denial of service or unfair treatment in relation to education, employment, healthcare, access to or enjoyment of goods and facilities, opportunities which are available to the public, right to movement, right to reside, rent or otherwise occupy property, opportunity to hold public or private office, and access to a government or private establishment in whose care or custody a transgender person is. It means to state that no transgender person should be treated discriminatorily at any place. Same Act has provisions of control and prohibit offences against transgender persons under Section 18, Chapter 8. Against transgender persons, such as compel or entices a transgender person to indulge in the act or forced or bonded labour other than compulsory service for public purposes imposed by the government. Denies a transgender person the right of passage to a public place or obstructs such person from having used or having access to public space to which other members have access to or a right to use. Forces or causes a transgender person to leave household, village or other places of residence. Harms or injures or endangers the life, safety or well-being, whether mental or physical, of a transgender person or tends to do acts including causing physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal and emotional abuse and economic abuse. This shall be punishable with imprisonment for a term which shall not be less than 6 months, but which may be extended to 2 years or appropriate fine or both. There can be many initiatives we can take to reduce discrimination and violence faced by transgender persons. The legal and law enforcement personnel need to be sensitized on the issues of transgender people. Taking action against parents who neglect or abuse their gender non-conforming or transgender children, and against doctors who practice electroshock or other kinds of unethical conversion therapy. Making free legal aid available to transgender individuals seeking redress against discrimination and violence. Taking into account the difficulties faced by transgender people in securing their legal right to live with dignity, the National Legal Services Authority has taken steps to provide legal services to such persons by way of an innovative and diversified program. Where transgender individuals need to be incarcerated, care must be taken to ensure that they are not in circumstances where they are vulnerable to different types of abuses. Sexual assault, sexual harassment and domestic violence laws policies be made transgender inclusive through proper amendments. Institution, organizational, social work institutions may undertake a study on crime against transgender persons. National Crime Records Bureau may from now on collect and compile statistics of crime against transgender persons, as also about cases registered against them as accused. Thank you.
अरे यार आज तो बहुत लेट होने वाला हूँ यार. अरे लेट उठा लेट आऊँगा. अच्छा ठीक है मैं वेट करूँगा तेरा कॉल. ठीक है बाय.
अरे रुको, अरे रुको. हाँ हाँ
उससे कहना कि तुम
अभी बस स्टॉप पे हूँ. तो क्या हुआ? तुम हाँ क्यों क्या है बाबा?
जी जी ये लोग भी ना.
अंकल आप इधर बैठ जाइए.
नहीं बेटा आप
नहीं बैठ जाइए.
थैंक यू.